It doesn't mean that by practicing Sahaja Yoga Meditation, we become suddenly problemless or stressless. No, it's illusion. Obviously, we experience a lot of what all people experience in our high-paced society and struggle with works and whatnot and families and relationships and so on. But the perspective it gives you, the qualities it opens up, you become better communicator, you become better visionary, your awareness widens up and you suddenly see the same situation from far away or from top of it, and you see much wider angle. And when we're capable of doing this, we are suddenly getting a view of a bird, and we see the same problem differently.
Hey there, and welcome. I'm your host, Regina Topelson, registered dietitian, plant-based foodie, amateur athlete, mom of teenage boys and one lucky girl, cancer survivor, and host of the Life Well Lived podcast. Living through cancer seemed like the hard part until I had to learn how to live after. We all want to feel healthy and safe and know that our life has meaning and purpose. If you're a patient, survivor, or caretaker, this is the place to find hope and inspiration through life's great disruptor and learn to live more fully today. My special guest today is Oleg Kotliarsky, and he is the person that I credit for teaching me how to meditate and how to get me in the practice of really one of the best self-care practices that I could recommend to anyone. And that has been an absolute lifesaver for me in my life. I came to Oleg and Sahaja Meditation at a time in my life where I was recovering from cancer, and it was instrumental in really helping me to make the most of my recovery. So, Oleg, welcome to the Life Well Lived podcast.
Thank you very much, Regina.
So, Oleg, why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you came to Sahaja Yoga, Sahaja Meditation?
Well, it was I was growing in Russia, and I just finished my graduated from college, finished my education. Was a very analytical person. I graduated from mathematics and mechanics faculty, so you can imagine science was on my attention. And at that time, borders started to open, and my mom visited very interesting presentation, which she pointed out a year ago. It was 1989, and the government of Gorbachev at that time opened the borders, and some spiritual movements moved into closed before Russia. And my mom visited such a presentation from Shimaji Nirmala Devi, who is the founder of Sahaja Yoga. And a year later, Shimaji came again. She visited 3 cities, Leningrad that time, St. Petersburg nowadays, and Moscow and Kiev. And it was held in the big stadiums, in the big halls. And my mom told me that, this doesn't happen very often. Person of such a attitude and such a grand stature doesn't come very often in your life. And so she almost insisted, as an intelligent person, you should go. And me, my wife, and our 3-month-old child, went to the program in Olympic Stadium, and we listened through the interpreter. We held our seats, and we saw Indian ladies sits in the white sari on the stage far away from us, and the interpreter would explain everything, what she would say, sentence by sentence, and we would listen, and everything she said was fascinating, but too good to be true. She was talking about spiritual ascent. She was talking about inner powers. She was talking about things which kind of we read in sci-fi books and fascinated about. But really, when it comes to activation, actualization of these hidden powers she mentioned, we step back and say, no, it's not possible. And at the end, she offered the exercise, and Shimaji led us all, maybe 10,000 people in the hall, and it was all free. It was also very, very surprising for that statue of a teacher or guru to offer something for free. And
how long did it last? Was it the whole day?
No, it was like 1 hour, maybe 45 minutes presentation. She would talk about what Sahaja Yoga is about. And then the exercise itself of what she called awakening of Kundalini. She explained before that Kundalini is the inner power which resides in the sacrum bone of every human being in the dormant state. And again, when you hear about Kundalini, if you read something about it, and by the way, she is present. The stories about Kundalini with different names, obviously, are present in all spiritual scriptures of every kind, including Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Krishnaism. All ancient scriptures and spiritual books are talking this way or other way about Kundalini. And so Shimaji is suddenly explaining for 45 minutes what Kundalini is about and why it is important to awaken her, gives us in 40 minutes presentation, and after that exercise for 20 minutes, again through the interpreter. And the exercise is very simple, with putting your right hand on certain portions of your body and saying very, very naive, simple sentence. As I learned later on that these sentences actually represent the essence of the qualities which are supposed to awaken or help that Kundalini of each individual who desires her awakening to open your chakras. And later on, again, I heard somebody more advanced yogi than me at that time explaining that these sentences are the keys to the doors. So we have 7 energy centers called chakras within our subtle system, within our energy system, within our body. And each chakra, if you think about this as a floor or door, with the lock, has that key which opens it. And so even though being very, very simple sentences, which we repeat several times in our heads, they carry tremendous power. And later on, after all this exercise passed through, all these 10,000 people, Shimaji would call us and ask us, okay, now raise your hand above your head and check if you can feel the breeze which is going out of your head. And being an analytical person, I had so many doubtful thoughts in my head at that time, obviously. And I said, yeah. But I felt something which surprised me. And I said, immediately my mind told me, yeah, it's air conditioner in the or whatever, physical wind blowing here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you were probably pretty skeptical.
Very skeptical. Very, very skeptical, like every person of modern age, where we are so bound to technology and science, which drives our way. And I saw science, the science which is available for human race at that time, is the only advancement of me as a human being. And suddenly, starting from that day, I started to doubt. I realized that there is much more science which not discovered yet. So science I thought about was science of what humanity already knows. But I realized that humanity doesn't know much more than it knows. And so this experience with Kundalini awakening brought me to the, I would consider it next, another level of awareness at that moment. And I felt something I have never felt before. And so then Shimaji, like listening to our doubts in our heads, would say, okay, for those with little kids, you can check if you can feel that breeze from their heads. And our son was 3 months old, and he was sleeping but it was closed one. And it was November, so it was cold, and my wife even closed the front, so he's completely closed. So I took that curtain out, and I pulled my hand, and he was laying down sleeping. And I put my hand literally above his head, like several inches above his head. And I felt such a tremendous, powerful stream, horizontal stream from his head towards my palm. And I was like puzzled, really puzzled. That's how Sahaja Yoga started for me.
So you went home after this event and you just started doing research on meditation. Not really. So how did you come around to it?
Yeah, that's another story. So as I learned over the years of practice of Sahaja Yoga, it requires certain type of desire. We all have desires, but we know that there is one desire, I want it, another desire, I really want it, and another level of desire, I will do whatever it takes to get it. And so I noticed that, I would love to have that ability to know about myself through that awakening process. And by the way, I learned that it's not just awakening what is important, but once Kundalini is awakened, Shimaji would call it self-realization. She brings our attention to the state of thoughtless awareness. New term for me at that time. Thoughtless awareness. For me at that time, I was normal young man who was drinking occasionally and heavily, and I would lose myself in after drinking some alcohol, and that fuzzy head would give me a sense of, okay, no problems in the world, and I'm happy. But I learned later on that this is state of unawareness, thoughtless but unawareness. And in meditation, real state of meditation is when your Kundalini brings your attention to that state of thoughtless awareness. Okay, so what is thoughtless awareness? You are here, you're now, you're in the moment, but no past, no future actually bothering you. In the sense that there is no mental reflection, no mental reaction, no arguing in your head. And so you stay and enjoy that very peaceful, very profound state of safety and depending on where Kundalini works on your chakras, and each chakra is responsible for many different qualities in our characters. And suddenly, if she works, for example, and she's female, powerful energy within each one of us. If she works on your heart, suddenly you feel opening of your heart associated with love and compassion and safety and security. And you may feel that suddenly, being very maybe harsh personality, suddenly your open heart provides you that sense of love, not focused love on one particular person, which most of the time associated with
romantic love.
Well, romantic is different, obviously, but romantic also requires some attachment. Romantic love is attachment. I am for you, you are for me. Mm. But that love is like love of the sun to each leaf on the planet. It doesn't choose the leaves. So it gives that light and ultraviolet and warmth to everyone.
That's so beautiful.
I didn't know about this. I being normal person, you never think in this category of things. And suddenly Shimaji comes and gives her lifetime to teach you this and doesn't ask for money. And this is another thing which was fascinating about all Sahaja Yoga in all her life, that she was doing it for free, mentioning many interviews that you can't buy love. You can't. How much would you pay for Moses? How much would you pay to Jesus Christ? How much would you pay to Buddha? And so when people hear this, and from genuine personality like herself, who never had earned money for her work, they are puzzled and they try to really learn more. So for me, back to your question, I immigrated from Russia to different country several months later after I got my self-realization, and I was completely lost. I was not really into any spirituality at that time. I tried to make my living and learn how to really adjust a new environment, learn new language, and find a good job. So it took me a while, but my wife, she stayed with our son and finished her education still in Russia, and she started to come to the programs, which were free, weekly programs, which I learned a very normal thing around the world. Now Sahaja Yoga is practiced in around 100 countries in the world. In the United States, we have 35 states which have continuous programs around on a weekly basis, and some states, even like in Colorado, we have 3 different different programs. Not now, but before, in different locations. So
I want to contrast something you said. You talked about the state of thoughtless awareness, and I think it contrasts to how normally we live our lives right now, which is a state of thoughtful unawareness.
Well said. Thoughtless unawareness. Yeah, that's the trap we live in, a mental trap where we are constantly driven by either left side of our brain or right side of our brain, which are actually, as I learned in Sahaja Yoga, which uses very simple map of chakras and energy channels. These 2 left and right hemispheres of our brain left represents superego and right represents ego. These are, I like to call them dead ends of the energy flowing within our cells. So the idea of thoughtless awareness is to learn the way your Kundalini, to let your Kundalini first, and then learn how you can utilize your connection with your Kundalini in a way that she drives the process. She brings the light from your heart into your brain, opens that 6th energy center up, and brings your attention above. What happens in this condition is that in 6th energy center, which is represented by this connection with 2 constitutions or institutions, which represent ego on the left hemisphere of our brain, because right side crosses and ends up in the left hemisphere of our brain, and superego. So ego, what is ego? Ego is I-ness in us. What is superego is conditioning within us. And these 2 constantly fight with each other for the right to drive. And we operate as followers of these 2. Our ambitions come with our ego. Our rules in our lives come from our superego. Now, what I was fascinated right at the beginning when I started to come to the programs of Sahaja Yoga and being very, very young meditator, I heard lecture of Shimaji where she explains it very nicely. She said, so what Kundalini does for us from very beginning, once she is awakened, she takes our attention from that slavery condition of followers of ego and superego into the freedom. And I was like, wow, no way. And I started really focus on my attention on that desire. I started to express that desire. Okay, let me feel that freedom. And so one of the suggestions was ask your Kundalini basically to drive the process and bring your attention to that state, which is associated with the vacuum, the space of silence between thoughts. And by thoughts, I mean all the reflections, reactions, and questions in our heads. Again, if you look at any of your thoughts, you will find connection either with the past experience, left side, or future planning, ambition. And even if it is very close to this moment. And then I realized, I also heard Shimaji saying, so we're missing our life because we never live in the present moment. And life happens only in present moment. By being busy with our thoughts in any form, we are missing the life, the gift, the present. And then everything like a puzzle clicks together and you say, okay, so I'm so bound to that mental processing, like many other millions of people, and this is what we know. We didn't know before that in the middle, in that state of thoughtless awareness, we actually gain much more knowledge and power and abilities. And then I learned that, obviously, I'm not saying that that ego and superego are false institutions in us. No. They're very important. But the idea of Sahaja Yoga meditation practice is to really bring us and develop that state of us, each individual, to the next you, next me, where we are not slaves of ego or superego, but masters. We use them when we need to think, when we need to express our desire, we use our left side. When we need to do something, we use our right side and become a very dynamic force without anticipation of result, without broken heart if we didn't achieve that. And so back to your question, this is the ability to get to thoughtless awareness is a new step in evolution of human beings. That's what I defined for myself when I really started to practice Sahaja Yoga. And I said, yes, I want next step to be much better than previous in my evolution. As a human being, as a spiritual being, I want to be much more capable and much more knowledgeable. And I was not frustrated for a second since I started.
So I'm sure you've never heard this before at a party or anywhere else. When you're talking to people and you start talking about how wonderful meditation is and how you get so much good from it, and a person says back to you, oh, I could never meditate. I can't meditate. I have too many thoughts. So what do you say to a person who says, I can't meditate?
So before I answer this question, it was fascinating for me. Why you can imagine, for 30 years of practice, I met a lot of seekers. Shimaji would call people seekers who are searching for different states of their minds, and they're searching for answers which we all carry on the back of our mind and in our hearts. And I found out that there are so many types of meditations, but mostly what I heard and what I learned, meditation is associated with the state of relaxation, which is very important for us. We live in such a stressful world and high-paced world that we need relaxation. The ability to relax is huge help to our health, mental, physical, emotional. But what I found fascinating about Sahaja Yoga, and this is the question we answer on our programs many, many hundreds of times, what's the difference between Sahaja Yoga meditation and other types of meditation? Sahaja meditation starts from awakening of Kundalini. And this is huge difference. And so to that person who refers to meditation and says, I can't meditate, I sympathize because I could meditate. I didn't know what meditation is. And when somebody would sit me down and ask me to focus on the wall or chanting something, yes, I would try that, but wouldn't do difference. Now, what I learned that when your Kundalini is awakened, and it's a very simple process, when it happens, she takes over. The idea of Sahaja Meditator, the goal of Sahaja Meditator is to let her drive. The moment you figure it out, you're done. You will be able to meditate. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who pass through our programs in different countries. I'm saying myself only hundreds, but there are millions others around the world who come to our programs with buzz in their head, and after 3, 4, 5 weeks, they suddenly come with joy and admit, I got it. For 3 seconds, for 1 second, for 5 seconds, I experienced that gap in my head between thoughts. That gap was a blessing. Not only... Go ahead.
3 seconds of a gap is huge.
Yes, it is.
Huge. Yeah.
What I learned that when I experienced at the beginning the gap of that magnitude, which is big, I felt after that meditation, which I would spend in meditation 15, 20, 30 minutes, and among those, I would experience a couple of times of 3 seconds. I would be such a joyful person after that, such a relaxed person, such a rejuvenated person. So from very beginning, when you start sensing this short of the gap, you will feel huge change in your physical, emotional, and spiritual awareness.
And we should mention that the gap is actually the gap between your thoughts. So we don't even notice like how fast those thoughts are coming, and everything from what should I have for dinner tonight? What should I buy at the grocery store? Oh my God, I have this thing due at work tomorrow, or I'm not working tomorrow, or, like whatever the thoughts are, right? They come so fast that we don't even notice.
Absolutely.
And so to have 3 seconds of a gap between two thoughts it's amazing. Nothing short of amazing.
Absolutely amazing. But more amazing than this is the moment you start to experience these short gaps between your thoughts, you found the way to let your Kundalini drive the process. And when it happens, next time you can expand this. And next time for 5 seconds, 7 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute. Sometimes after a minute of absolute silence in your head, you are a completely different person. We're talking about just outside effects and inner feeling, but we didn't even touch about rejuvenating processes within our cells of our body, which is another healing process of meditation. That's why meditation generally became so popular. And so, yes, to your point, 3 seconds is amazing, but then you can control, and I put quotes around control word because it's not correctly explains what happens. You just got that skill to let it happen. And yes, it is a way to the mastery of meditation when you can expand that gap between thoughts or any other type of mental reaction or reflection in your head to as long as you want, because you're in complete connection with your Kundalini. Your mental state is completely fed by the energy of your Kundalini.
Oleg, I remember in the beginning when I first started coming to your classes, I thought about meditation a little bit like golf. Like you have 100 days that are like really, really bad. And then you have one day where it's like the most amazing game you've ever had. You have the best shot you've ever had. And you want to keep having that feeling of the best shot you've ever had. So you keep coming back and you keep sitting through the oh, it's not happening for me. Oh, I have a million thoughts in my head. So let me ask you this. What is a mantra, and when or why would people want to use one?
Okay.
Even in Sahaja, I remember we had what I would consider mantras, right?
So there are two parts to your question. First of all, mantra is the formal explanation of what mantra is a charged with positive energy type of song, very short, usually short song of 2 or 4 lines, usually in Sanskrit, because Sanskrit language represents the sound, the primordial sounds of the universe. That's how Sanskrit was initially thought about.
Does it have to be a song? Or can it just be a saying?
Yeah, it's I call it saying. Yeah, a phrase.
Saying. Okay.
Yeah, and there is the mantras in Sahaja Yoga. We absolutely use mantras, but when we practice a Sahaja Yoga part of the which I consider more spiritual part of the practice. But in our public programs, we never use mantras. In order to really feel the effect of the mantra, one has to be in that state of connection. Yoga means connection, union between inside and outside, between your spiritual being and that universe, which or refer to it divine, or primordial power of love, or the controlling energy which keeps everything in harmony.
Wait, hold on. I have to define something here, because you're talking about yoga in the sense of somebody being a yogi, as opposed to what people normally think of as yoga, which is the exercise with the asanas and the poses. So right now we're speaking of yoga as a connection of someone who practices meditation, a yogi.
Absolutely.
And yes. Okay.
Thank you for this correction. Obviously, I didn't pay attention to the meaning of the word. Western world knows about yoga, the very small part of it, which is physical exercise, which are very, very rejuvenating for our body and important. But literally, if you look backwards to the Vedas, where word yoga came to the West from, you'll find that physical exercise actually represents only 15%, about 15% of what yoga means. All the rest is really build up mental exercises, spiritual exercises, worshiping exercises, which create that connection. And so 15% out of it, Western world took to its meaning and created the understanding that yoga is exercising, while it is not. It is not all of it. So when we talk about yoga, it's state of connection, which is achieved through that awakened kundalini, which brings our attention above mental level and connects us and gives us that first step into thoughtless awareness. There are 2 more levels above it. But I don't think we need to talk about them, because really talk about introduction to Sahaja Yoga Meditation.
Mm-hmm. I think for people in the Western world, it's easier to associate or correlate with something physical, which is why we associate the word yoga with the physical exercise of it, versus the thing that's harder, the emotional and the spiritual part. We tend to talk about that as being meditation, but I can understand how in the Eastern world, it's one, all of it is one thing.
So Regina, back to your question about mantras. So in our public programs, we don't use mantras in their original form, although more advanced programs we do. But on our programs, we use we call them affirmations.
Okay.
Yeah, these are affirmations I mentioned before when we follow the steps of during the process of awakening of our Kundalini. Each chakra has that lock, and for each lock, we use the key. This is the affirmation. It's also, you can consider it mantra, but why to consider it mantra if it is better explained as affirmation? So you can use these affirmations at home when you meditate on your own, and this is obviously one very important suggestion we give to everybody who comes to our programs to meditate at home. To see the results, you need to practice, and like everything we do in our lives, if we want to get any level of proficiency, we need to train ourselves. We need to be consistent with our practice. And so this is how everybody who comes to our programs, now virtually, but usually in the public places, somewhere in the library, we would recommend them to go home and follow. We have a lot of resources online. Everything is free, and people follow either guided meditations online or learn on our programs how to meditate. And really, you learn that you don't need more than 15 minutes in the morning and more than 15 minutes in the evening. Shamaji would even explain that you don't need hours to sit in meditation. You don't need to waste your time. As we mentioned before, 3 seconds of meditation, the real gap between thoughts, makes huge difference. Imagine if you got to this gap and got to the skill to keep that gap for longer than 3 seconds. Sometimes in the evening meditation, after very long and heavy day, when I feel exhausted, I sit in meditation and I stand up after this 15, 20 minutes of deep meditation. I don't want to sleep. I am completely rejuvenated. So in a way, I even kind of regret that I sat in meditation and got to this deep meditation, because I like to sleep. I know what it gives me, real refreshment to whole body and mental. But that's what Sahaja Yoga Meditation gives us: rejuvenation to our brain, to our physical body, to our spiritual being, and to our emotional being. And all this together gives us next you.
So I have to comment on that, because I have heard many times that when you get to that very deep meditation, that it is equivalent to maybe several hours of sleep, because you get into that REM state. And so it's very relaxing for your whole body and your brain. Yeah, it's very good for you. It's, in terms of, like, if you didn't get a good night's sleep, if you meditate for a little bit and you get into that deep REM of meditation, that you can, alleviate the tiredness and so forth that the lack of sleep would have given you. But, I'm like an average human being that hasn't practiced meditation for 30 years. So I have to say that sometimes 15 minutes, I don't feel like I got anything. I don't feel like I opened any spiritual channels. And I really, you talked about a waste of time of doing it for longer, but I feel like sometimes the longer I sit there, the more chance that I've actually accomplished something, because 15 minutes, sometimes I can't get to that place where I'm relaxed enough where I can open up and relax and, get to that meditation state. Like, I'm still processing the grocery store list, You're
not alone. I completely connect to what you just said, and all of us are very similar. Now,
even experienced yogis?
Absolutely. Now, there are two parts to that condition. One part is that the depth and length of our meditation dependent on the condition of each chakra. Kundalini has power to open our chakras, energy centers, while piercing through them. And by opening, I mean our chakras tend to get to disorder. But by the virtue of us utilizing a right or left channel, the weakest chakras give up and clog. If you imagine pipe in the middle, and every chakra is a node in that pipe, if chakra is disbalanced, it tends to clog that pipe. There is no passage of pure energy, and this is how we get sick. All of us.
What happens if Kundalini just doesn't show up that day?
Yeah, she shows up. Once awakened, she constantly shows up when you call for her. But the condition of our chakras may prevent her to go all the way up to connection state. Connection happens on the 7th chakra on top of our heads. Imagine 2nd and 3rd chakra are blocked. She's working, and we have on our fingertips representation, correlation with the conditions of every chakra, and we can feel where our Kundalini is. But obviously, in one shot, she is not capable of passing through and bringing you to that state of thoughtless awareness. So this is one part. So this guides us towards understanding that we need to keep our balanced condition as much as we can, whether it is keeping yourself balanced and applying some very simple cleansing techniques. And cleansing means cleansing inner body, inner spiritual structure of your human being. And second part to it is that, yes, we sometimes sit for 15 minutes and no gap happens. Again, because we're not balanced enough. So in these cases, you just stand up and move on, or you learn what happens. And again, on the fingertips, you have all the map which correlates to the inner condition of your chakras and channels, and you check I argued with my husband today, my 5th energy center blocked, so okay, let me work on this. And being experienced yogini, you work with energy on your chakra, or with fire, with a candle, or with food soak. We use five elements of nature, like fire and water and Mother Earth and air and ether, sky, in order to cleanse our subtle bodies, our chakras, and help our Kundalini to pierce through. So back to your question, yes, it happens to all of us, but over time you learn to keep yourself in between meditations more balanced, so your chakras are not getting affected. So next time you sit in meditation, Kundalini doesn't struggle and spends all 15 minutes on working on 2nd chakra. Instead, you're more or less balanced and you get into that state much easier.
So it's never a waste of time. It's that sometimes you can't get that connection because one of the chakras is blocked. And so you come back the next time to continue to try to unblock it.
Once Kundalini awakens, it never a waste of time, because, and I like to repeat it at our programs, that even if you didn't get to real sense of meditation, feeling of meditation, this 15 minutes, you let your Kundalini, you tried, you applied some affirmations, you connected with your Kundalini in your awareness, in your mental level, and you asked her to work, she's working. Maybe you don't feel it at the beginning especially, but she's already in the process of purifying you from within. And the quantity will get to the quality. Once you start sensing her presence, you become more and more sensitive, because your central nervous system gets awakened more and more and more. And through the practice, you get hold of new experiences with your Kundalini, a new level of sensitivity. And you start sensing her presence and vibratory, so we call it vibratory awareness. Mm-hmm. When you can feel vibrations about your conditions of your subtle system on your hands, and also other people.
So tell me about foot soaks, because that's something that I remember doing a lot of.
So it's a very simple grandma's technique. When you're looking for a relaxed bath, relaxation bath, you would put salt into your bath and sink your body into and feel kind of very rejuvenated after that bath. So Shimaji taught us to take a bucket, fill it with the water, room temperature water, up to the ankle level. Put a couple of tablespoons of salt into it, and sit with sinking your bare feet into that bucket. You prepare a towel nearby and another cup of water to rinse your feet after that. And so for 10 minutes, you sit and sink your feet. It's because we are energy bound. We are everything is about energy. When you think about go deep into the cells of our bodies, into molecules, into atoms, everything is energy. And so map of our subtle system of all our chakras and channels also exists on our feet. So when we sink our feet in a bucket of water, salty water, salt represents element of earth and has a quality to catch negativity, while water represents water and has power of absorbing negativity. So that bucket, what it does on a subtle level, it sucks some of the overload, some of that heaviness in our subtle system and our energy system through these channels in our feet and absorbs it, and salt captures it. That's why we recommend to only 10 minutes, because after that it goes back, literally. There is no way. It's not an ocean. In the ocean, you can make a body soak for as long as you want, because it will absorb and absorb and absorb. But in the bucket of what Shimaji called foot soak, only 10 minutes. So after that, you rinse your feet, you towel it off, take the bucket, flush it in the toilet, rinse it, flush it again, done. And by the way, we record so many people would come to our programs after first foot soak, they tried, and they say, finally, I slept like a baby. And this is what it does. It literally absorbs all that heaviness in our subtle system, which we can't explain when we don't practice Sahaja Yoga for extensive period of time. We don't know what bothers us most of the time. And if even we know, where mental knowledge doesn't let us really get rid of all that heaviness. The simple technique, which we practice in Sahaja Yoga Meditation, helps us to get rid of all that heaviness and go to bed and sleep like a baby.
So if I think about meditation the way that I think of the physical yoga practice, right? They always say in the classes that, they hope that you can take what you've learned on the mat and take it out into the rest of the world with you. How do you feel that practicing Sahaja meditation has helped you in the other parts of your life, in work, in family, spirituality, etc.?
Well, very good question, and very good correlation. The Sahaja Yoga practice actually is a framework, and this is not my words. The one lady came to our program and said, I used to practice Sahaja Yoga a long time ago when I was just student in college in India. And she immigrated she came to work in the United States. Now she's a citizen, and she dropped it. For 17 years, she didn't practice. And then she came to us and she told us that at the beginning, I thought that Sahaja Yoga resolves all my problems. I didn't see it happen, so I dropped it. Now, I found out that Sahaja Yoga is providing very powerful framework to adapt to each situation in my life. And instead of resolving problems for me, give me a proper look to resolve it myself. And I was like, wow, that's deep. That's really deep, because I couldn't say the better than this. So yeah, it doesn't mean that by practicing Sahaja Yoga Meditation, we become suddenly problemless or stressless. No, it's illusion. Obviously, we experience a lot of what all people experience in our high-paced society, and struggle with works and whatnot, and families and relationships and so on. But the perspective it gives you, the qualities it opens up. For example, fifth energy center, we talked about a little bit, responsible for communication, responsible for state of witness, responsible for diplomacy skills. Suddenly, if you experience that opening within this fifth energy center, you become a much more powerful witness to every situation in your life, every relationship in your life. It doesn't mean that your relationship become better, but yes, it is becoming better. But in a sense that you become better. You become better communicator. You become better visionary. Your awareness widens up, and you suddenly see the same situation from far away or from top of it, and you see much wider angle. And when we're capable of doing this, we are suddenly getting view of a bird, and we see the same problem differently. And this just a small example of how it literally helps you in every aspect of your life.
And one more question. What does a life well lived mean to you?
That's a good question. Deep one. The happy and satisfied. This is what I loved about my practice, that literally after meditation, you are filled with that happiness and blissful feeling, which I haven't felt before. I was an athlete, young athlete, before I started to practice Sahaja Yoga, and athlete in college. And I remember these moments when I was playing basketball, where I was so engaged in the game, and with the ball, without ball, you move. And this was happiness, the pure happiness. And I haven't felt the same other than later on when I started to practice meditation. I felt similarly. And so this level of satisfaction and happiness from nothingness, not from new car, not from new house, not from anything else, from achievement of any kind. We need achievements, don't take me wrong. I like when I accomplish something I set in my work, in my career. I'm a software engineer, so it is important for me to be on top of things and follow the time frames and so on, and deliver projects. Yes, it is satisfying, of course, but it's a very a parallel to that satisfaction of being good, being nourished from within, and being happy from within. In that condition, when we really live in present moment, we're so balanced that we can't harm ourselves and can't harm nature and can't harm anybody else. And this is a big revelation for me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina.
Boy, that was a great session, and it really takes me back to when I first learned how to meditate. So if you are feeling intrigued and you want to find out more about meditating, you can get more information at meditationcolorado.org. You can also find free sessions, which are currently being held over Zoom, but normally would be held in person, at meetup.com/Sahaja Meditation Colorado. And Sahaja is spelled Sahaja. Or you can find more information on their Facebook page, Facebook.com/Sahaja Meditation, Colorado. You can also find all of these links on my website if you head on over to lifewell-lived.com/007. That's right, 007. I hope you've laughed. I hope you've learned. I send you healing strength, and I'm grateful for you. You've been listening to the Life Well Lived podcast. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with your friends so they can benefit too. Check out the show notes so you can connect with me on social media. Peace and love. Until next time.